Hi everyone, welcome to the second project that is going to be part of our Asian flowers and foliage. So in this third part of this particular project, we're going to be in the third and fourth part, we're going to be creating the bamboo. Now the bamboo we're going to use not only into the finished container, but also we're going to make the container look very much like the cake I'm going to talk more about in a moment, this green cake here, where we're actually going to use bamboo on the can to actually create a sort of container to arrange all the beautiful flowers, the camellia, the plum blossoms, the Japanese maple, the ginkgo, and also the bamboo. So let's get started. So here we have sort of inspiration for our Asian theme. So here is a cake I created for the video. So this one was done with green bamboo, and then I've actually also used dried bamboo from the mold around the edge of the cake board, and then the actual surface of the cake board is done with Kerry Griffith's rattan, continuous rattan mat. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that later on. But here you can see that I have a cake where I actually took the bamboo and I've created this sort of effect. And that's really, as I said, the inspiration for the container that I planned for putting the, as I said, Asian flowers in. And also you can see here we have the natural bamboo, which obviously I talked a little bit about on the end of the camellia, episode as well. And here you can see I have also another Asian themed cake where I've covered this with red sugar paste rolled fondant. I've used bamboo around the cake board, and then I've also used here bamboo on here in gold. And so it has a very sort of Chinese Asian feel to it. So that's going to be, as I said, the inspiration for our container. So when I come back, I'm going to show you how we're going to create the container. So this is the bamboo mold. So the bamboo mold has 3 cavities. For the container, we're going to use the large size cavity. And then when we go on to make the bamboo, we'll be using the large and the medium. But there are 3 sizes on here. And just to give you an idea, this is obviously a piece of like dried bamboo. So that's like the large size. So that's going to be the size we're going to use. And then here you have, for example, this is some unpainted bamboo, but this is a painted one. So this is the sort of the small one here and the medium one there. So you see you've got like three different sizes. Okay, so very useful for many different types of applications. And of course, bamboo, generally speaking, you have 3 types of bamboo. You have dried bamboo. So this would be like obviously looks like dried bamboo, which is used in furniture, like rattan furniture and things like that. Then you have green bamboo, which is the sort of the brighter green bamboo, which would be like done in this sort of brighter green, which is what I've used on the side of the cake behind me. So this is going to be what it would look like. And then you also have natural bamboo. So this would be, as I said, just regular bamboo, but when it's growing, it's going to have a gray sort of a greeny, brown, khaki sort of color. So it's almost like in between a cream and a green. So those are the 3 colors. Now in our arrangement, I've decided to use the brown bamboo. So this is going to be like the dried bamboo for the container, because in the actual arrangement in the container, we're going to be having obviously natural bamboo, like you can see here on the cake there that I've just shown you. So that's going to be done in the more of the khaki color. But also in our container, we're going to have some brighter green ginkgo and also Japanese maple, because Japanese maple can be used also in spring and summer as more of a vibrant green. So really we're going to have all of the 3 colors. But once I've shown you this, I'm also going to show you in sugar as well, making one in the brighter green, just so you can see the 2 different color combinations. Now, so this is actually our, as I said, 3 sizes of bamboo. And then there's also the little small, and this is the small side piece that on the video, when you watch the bamboo video, you'll see how I use that to create the little small offshoots. Okay, so that is used for small bamboo. But of course, that could also be used on cupcakes or on cakes or cookies and things as well. If you're doing a figure model of, say, a panda, you could use that as a smaller piece of bamboo also. Now, when we start the bamboo, we're going to, first of all, so following our directions, we're going to, first project we're going to work on is going to be the container. Now, we're going to start off with, you're going to need, which I discussed in one of the lives, we're going to need a container, vegetable, soup, fruit container, approximately about 425 grams, as I said, and of sort of 15 ounces. This one is that. This one is 14.5 ounces, 411 grams. So just approximately, as I said, about that size, all right? Because they will vary a little bit, but generally a standard fruit can. You're going to basically take the can, and then you're going to obviously, you know, open it, take this, wash this to get obviously the label off the outside of it. I've used a little bit of like a goof off or goo goo gone, something to get sticky adhesive off, just to take obviously where it usually is glued. But the label usually comes off very easily because it's just glued in one place. And then next step is going to be to paint this. Now, I'm going to paint this using an acrylic. All right, now you're going to use, for the one I'm going to show you, which I will be using in my final container, I'm using an acrylic paint here. This is just a color like a camel color. So it just wants to be a sort of a beigey, creamy, khaki sort of color. All right, so if you're going to do the sort of the natural colored bamboo, which would look like this when we do the first part of it before it's painted, you want to start off with this sort of caramel sort of camel color to paint the can. All right, so what we're actually going to do here is going to paint the can with that. And then if you were doing the brighter green one, this one I've actually done in sugar, and I'm going to show you also using sugar paste and rolled fondant. But you see, I just sort of paint that as sort of a bright limey green, okay? But so just so obviously finding acrylic paint. You can also use a spray paint as well, but acrylic is less expensive, but it's also obviously a little bit easier to do than having to go outside and spray paint. But you could totally spray paint this as well. But you'll see here, these are the colors. So this is the sort of the camel color, and this is called lime green. All right, and these are just acrylic paints. And so all you're going to do is with your acrylic paint, you're going to just paint over the can. All right, so what I did there is I've just painted in the inside just a little ways. So I just used a brush, just painted in the inside a little ways. I painted the bottom, all right? And then what I did is I just took a block of styrofoam, a cake dummy with a dowel on, and I just put it on there to dry, all right? And then what I did is I then was able to sort of hold the, so if you paint the inside and just the rim, and then I was able to then paint the middle part. So I did it in 2 stages. And I actually did it a second coat as well, just I did 2 thin coats, all right, onto this. So what you'll end up with, you'll have your can, all right? So this will be the one for the natural or dried bamboo, and then this would be the one for the green bamboo. And as I said, I'm going to talk a little bit later about the cake because when I actually made the cake, I put a thin layer of like a bright green sugar paste or rolled fondant on the cake first, all right? Now, it doesn't have to be this exact color, but just approximately those sort of like sort of tonal colors, all right? And this is, of course, needs to be dry. And then this is going to be ready for the next step, which is going to be now to actually create the container. So we're now going to take 70 grams, which is on your obviously checklist. So 70 grams of white hardy clay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to then color that with cream. So you can either use, for example, like this is an Americolor gold color. All right, I'm talking about if you were going to use food colors to color, which a lot of you have. Or you could also use like a little bit of ivory and yellow, okay? So basically you want to turn that into a sort of a cream color. Now I'm going to use air drying clay. So I actually have here number 6 size of each of the pieces there. All right, and so I have a number 6 orange, number 6 yellow, and number 6 brown. So the advantage of this is that when you're using the hardy clay to color, the color won't ever fade, whereas food colors naturally over years, especially months or years, will eventually fade out. All right, so I have here number 6 orange, yellow, and brown, and I'm going to just add that to the 70 grams. So this is all on your download there. Just going to mix this through. All right, so it's going to mix this through, and this is going to give me a sort of a creamy color. And we're going to use this for the base. So you see how I'm just mixing these together, and this is going to give me this color we're going to use for the base of the bamboo, okay? I'm going to talk, remember, I'm going to talk about sugar a little later, but on your checklist, your download, you have all the colors and paste you need for both the sugar and also for the air drying clay. All right, so once you've mixed this through, so just give that a good mix. You can just also mix, you can pull like this. You have this sort of color we need for the base of this, all right? It's just a sort of a dark creamy color. And then what we're gonna do, I'm going to just roll this into a log. Just going to roll that into a log there, like so. I'm going to cut this into 8 pieces. You can use your little flexi scraper. Just going to do this into quarters. I'm going to do this into half like this. All right, so you're going to get, you have 8 pieces. So this is 70 grams. All right, and we're going to pop that into a bag. Now, how I calculated how much paste I need, all right, was that I measured around my can, all right? So my can was actually, when I measured around this, the can was actually about 235 millimeters around. All right, so about 23.5 centimeters or about 235 millimeters. All right, and if you get in that sort of approximate size, 15 ounces, 425 grams, it should be okay. All right, and so what I then did, so that is my obviously circumference, how many I needed, and then what I did is I then measured the actual width of the medium size one, which let's get my size guide there, my large size piece here. And as you can see, that's approximately about 15 millimeters across. All right, so what I did is that meant that we have 235 and then by 15 millimeters divided by 15 millimeters, so that gave me 15.66 pieces. So basically I took it as 16 pieces, so that will be what our 8 pieces will do, because each of these will make an extended piece of bamboo, large bamboo, which will be cut in half, and that will give us two out of each section. So that is enough. We're going to have a little bit extra, and then the other thing is that because the air drying clay shrinks a little bit, and also on the sugar as well, you're going to have a little gap at the back, which you just use the extra paste. So you're going to need like a small or a medium bamboo just to fill in the gap at the back. As you can see here, this is like a sugar one, but you see I've got 16 pieces on, and then I'll have enough there to get the sort of the small or a medium size one into here, okay? But so that's how I came about the amount that we're using. Now what we're going to do is, next thing, we're going to use a cake board or a plate. You could do this onto a plate, you could do it onto a cake board, all right? I'm going to put it onto, and I'm just going to put this onto a turntable. You don't have to have one of these, it just makes it a little bit easier for me to turn it into camera and things, okay? So I'm just going to put it onto a cake board here. Let's have that to one side a little bit, there we go. All right, so now what we're going to do is going to take your, so 70 grams of paste, going to roll into a sausage cut into 8 sections. We're going to brush a very small amount of vegetable fat shortening, especially if your clay is wet. This is fresh clay, so it's a little bit on the sticky side, all right? So just use your technique we've used many times before. I'm going to put that out of the way, there we go. All right, so it's going to take just a little tiny bit of vegetable fat shortening. We're going to brush this into the large cavity, and then all you're going to do here is going to roll this into a sausage. All right, so you want to roll your sausage of paste. Now if you were measuring this is about a number 15 small size, all right? So this is about a number 15 small size, but on the measurements it will give you more than you need. Now you place it at one end. I'm going to start at my right end of my mold here, and then I'm going to take my cosmetic sponge. And with my cosmetic sponge, I'm pushing it in, but you can see how also the other end of it, I'm pulling, all right? So we're just basically pushing this in, so you're filling the mold up level, like this. You can just make sure that the end is level, and then you can just press in with your flexi scraper. All right, now with the air drying clay, this doesn't really stretch, so you're just gonna remove it from the mold, and then you're going to just like line this up, okay? So what I'm doing, as you can see, is I've just lined up, this is obviously got where the little ribs, which are around the side there are, so you just line it up with one of those, and you're just going to continue along again, all right? So as you can see, this is going to make this longer than we need. You're going to take this out of the mold, all right? So you see how you'll have this really beautiful bamboo with all its natural obviously detail in, all right? Now, as far as the height of the vase, all right, so the height of the vase, getting my ruler in here, as you can see, this is actually about 11 centimeters high, okay? Now, what I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna add another half half a centimeter. So I'm actually going to cut these pieces 11.5, okay? So I'm going to cut them in 11.5 because what that's going to mean, it's going to extend it a little bit past the top. And because air drying clay shrinks a little bit, you will need to account. So if your can, or if you measure it was a little, let's say it was 11.5, then make it 12, okay? But as I said, generally speaking, most of these sort of fruit vegetable cans are standard, so different companies obviously are very, very similar, okay? And as I said, so I'm going to be cutting these 11.5 centimeters. Now this mold is made, so if you wanted to make it as you'll watch on one of the videos, if you want to make this to go all the way around the cake, like the gold cake behind me, you can make this sausage as long as you want. You just work it through the mold because it's almost like an infinity edge, okay? That means you can make this as long as you want. So anyway, so now what we're going to do is going to cut this. And what I'm going to do here is we're going to cut this, so 11.5 centimeters. And what I normally do there is I just take my ruler, and you see I'm going to put it here so that because like if you look there, 11.5 is actually going to be right in the middle of that, and that sort of doesn't look so good. It's better to have a little bit more detail. So I'm going to come along a little bit like that, and I'm going to cut this end, and then the other end I'm going to cut that to 11.5 centimeters here, okay? Now again, you can see what we don't want is you don't want them to look exactly the same because you don't want them to be symmetrical. All right, the mold is not, it doesn't have the little ribs are not the same way along, but what you're going to do there is you can just, for example, do like this one here, you can move that down. So you can cut that there, and then this one here, you can cut that there, you see? So when these go on, they will look nice and natural. You can see on the finished one, you can see how the ribs are in different places, all right? So it just makes it look more attractive. Now you can, when I talk about doing this on a cake, what it is when I did the cake on that video, I made about 8 of these and then I stuck them on. With the air drying clay, I find it's better just to stick these on straight away. Now, so what we're going to do is going to take some PVA glue, some white school glue, all right? I'm going to turn this over, and then we're going to take, we're either going to use, this is like a Wilton, a Tico piping tip. This is a 2A or 805, so it's basically just a 2A or 805 tip, or you can also use like a bubble tea straw, okay? And what we're going to do is this is going to be the top edge here. We're going to take this and going to just take this here and just going to push that in the top. So you see how what that's going to do is going to look like the top of the bamboo, okay? And on this one here, the game is going to take that. I'll show you this one with the bubble tea straw. So just using your bubble tea straw again, see how you're just going to press it into there like so. And bubble tea straws you can find really any Asian supermarket, grocery store. This is also something I sell as well. So these will be your tops, all right? And then we're going to take your glue, and I'm going to be quite liberal with the glue, okay? So just going to be quite liberal. Get that open there. There we go. A little bit dry bit on the top there. We're going to be quite liberal with your glue here. Okay, and then just going to brush that over. Going to brush it all over. Make sure you get right to the edge there. But as I said, it needs to be quite a generous amount of glue because you really want to make sure this sticks. Now you can use like stronger glues, but just this is a little bit more user friendly. Plus, you know, it's water soluble, so cleanup is a little bit easier as well. Okay, and then generally what I do is just keep my glue brush in a wet towel, just like my egg white brush. And then what I'll do there is just going to bring in my piece here. And I said, you don't have to use a turntable. It's just obviously I've used it, and that's a little bit easier for me to turn it into camera. All right, and so you're just going to just attach that. Make sure that looks fairly straight. You see it's going to be a little tiny bit taller because when it shrinks, it will shrink down to the right height. And then your next one will just be lined up. So your next one is just going to be lined up. I'm just going to push the two together like so. Okay. Now the reason why I've got it on a cardboard is it makes it easier to maneuver it around, but also what it means is going to come right down to the base, you see, like this. But and so you just will, so that will be your next piece there. All right, I'm just going to show you that one more time, and then I'm just going to then continue making these. I'm just going to go all the way around, and then when I come back, I'll show you how we would finish off the little gap, because it's sort of a choice depending on the but this, remember, is the large size one. Because we'll have 16 of these, we'll do a total of 8 of the bamboo, large bamboo, but then we'll give us 16 sort of shorter pieces of bamboo. Okay, but you see how I'm just pressing this in and just going to work this down. Really, really easy to use. All right, then you can just going to come along just a little ways. All right, and again we're going to take this, so we're going to take the 11.5 centimeters. So I'm just going to come a little tiny bit above that, so I'm going to take just a little bit off there, like so. All right, and you just will then take the other piece and do that. All right, now what you then do is you take your next 2 pieces. I'm just going to show you one of those, and you want to make sure that when you attach like this next one, you see that that can go that way or it could go this way. So because remember, you can decide where you want the top to be. Okay, and then again, just going to take your here with your tip, your piping tip, just going to just mark that top. Again, just going to turn that over. Now, when you make your sausage of paste, you know, just it doesn't matter sort of how long it is, and you cut it into 8, but you just want to make sure it's even all the way around. Okay, and then again, so it's sort of even diameter, so that when you get your pieces, it's obviously going to be a little bit less than, because remember we had 70 grams into 8. Okay, and then you're going to take your, you see, then this will just go on. Just going to push these together, going to butt them up like this. And as I said, you know, these are going to, as they dry, they're going to shrink a little bit. The reason why we need the painted can is that because you will have little areas, you can see here, this of course has to be painted, but you will have little areas where you see like little gaps, and so of course if it was a silver can, it's going to be noticeable. So that's why we would do the same on a cake. You'd mask off the background of your cake with either a colored ganache or a rolled fondant to match the color. All right, so I'm going to just continue with that, and sort of when I come back, I'll have the 16 of these on the cake, and then I'm going to show you how to finish this off. So as you can see, I've now used the 16 pieces. So this is obviously has 70 grams cut into 8, and obviously each one will yield 2 pieces. All right, so I've got 16 around there. What it will mean is that in the case of the can size I've used, which are all the same, you're going to have a gap there. Now you have, this is the paste that is left from the 70 grams. If you measure your can, and as I said, if it is larger than like 23.5 centimeters or 235 millimeters, you may want to allow just a little bit of extra, maybe do 80 grams of air drying clay, and then color it, and then again cut it into 9 instead of 8. But as I said, you can see here, we've actually got enough to bake another 2 pieces if we needed to. So 70 grams should be fine for everybody if you're using that same size can. But that's how you would calculate it. Now we're going to then, we're going to take your bamboo mold and decide what size you need to fill in. So you can see here, a small is going to be fine here, but if you had a bigger gap, you could use a medium size one. All right, plus also remember, you can take the small and you can squash it slightly anyway. Now, when we are using the other 2 sizes in the bamboo, we're using a 12 small in the small cavity. All right, we're using a 13 in the medium and a 15 small in here. And that is actually going to be in the packaging. So in the packaging, it's got the sizes of the bamboo, plus also in your instructions you have following this as well for the Flower Pro Members Club. So I'm going to use here. So I'm going to take a number 12 small. And of course, we only need half of this anyway, but you can see. So it's going to take about a 12 small. So this is going to be done in the same way. So again, it's going to pop just a little tiny bit of. And of course, I've worked with this paste now, so the thing is it gets to a point once it's not sort of tacky anymore, you probably won't even need any vegetable fat or shortening into your mold. So you're just going to roll this into sausage. Okay, remember, sausage is going to be made to about the diameter of the mold, and then you're going to come down here, and again, you're just going to stretch this down. You see how I'm pulling with my hand here? All right, just going to pull this down until this comes to, make sure that sort of stays within the perimeter there. You can use your little scraper there. You can just pull it in with your, and when you watch the videos of making the actual bamboo, you'll see this done several times, all right? So you stay within that, but now just remember, when you do this technique of taking this out, you're going to come down to where the last little rib is. You just put it into one of the ribs, and then of course you can continue to the length you need, all right? So again, you can see how this is going to make the small, if you do have any like overfill, you can just use your fingers there. This is going to be the small bamboo size. And again, we're going to take your, just going to cut that to about 11.5 centimeters here. Remember, this is half a centimeter longer than the height, okay? You can see that's what we have left, all right? So we've actually got here, using your size guide, you can see we have approximately about a number 13 left, all right? So we would have enough to do another 2 medium-sized ones. So 70 grams should work perfectly okay, but just wanted to explain about the process. And then taking your tips, remember, so this is like an Atico, this is a 2A Wilton tip, so they're both comparable size on the ends, or your bubble tea straw. Just gonna just mark that. And if you were doing just the small one, you could use a smaller piping tip, like a number 12. But generally, as I said, the bubble tea straw, I'm going to use that, or the 2A tip, or as I said, the Tico 805, which are all on your download, okay? I'm going to take that. Again, just going to a little bit more glue here. But you need to be quite generous with your glue. And of course, as I said, you can use, there are lots of different adhesive using craft, which we're basically using air drying clay. So it is craft, so you can of course use other stronger adhesives where you would need a little, but as I said, if you're using a PVA glue, just be quite generous with it. Make sure it's all over the surface so that it really does stick, okay? And then we're just gonna bring your, here, so it's gonna just sort of fit into the, it's gonna just fit into the end there like so. I'm gonna pop that in, and just gonna press that down, so that's going to just sort of come here like this. And then you're going to just use your hands, all right? I'm just using my hands just gently, because obviously the first ones we started off with, and it doesn't take long to do it. It took about 15 minutes to do this, so it's pretty quick, all right? And then this is going to dry, all right? And I would suggest leaving this to dry probably at least 12 hours before you paint this, because it's going to shrink a little bit and tighten. And if you do get any little gaps, you know, don't worry about that, because when we paint this in, but also you of course could, because you've got that brown on the background color, it's not going to notice through. Now, if the other choices here for colors would be, if you wanted to make this like a natural bamboo color, all right, this color, because this, remember, when this is painted, it's going to be more this color, okay? But if you wanted to make more the natural bamboo, you can see here the natural bamboo, you're going to make it like this is a little bit more greeny. So what you would do there is you'd also put in a little bit of green air drying clay, or if you're doing this with sugar, you would add a little bit of like an avocado or a moss color to that. And that makes that sort of a little bit more natural colored one. But you could also do that on the cream as well. So this will serve for dry bamboo or for a green, you know, the natural bamboo, which I'm calling this sort of color here, which is the one I have on the cake. And then if you wanted to make the brighter green, so this is more like the green bamboo, of course it's going to be painted, it will tone it down. That is going to be made in sort of this color here. And so in your directions there for the green bamboo, you'd use 70 grams of air drying clay colored lime, or you take 50 grams of white air drying clay, 10 grams of green, and 10 grams of yellow mixed together. And that would make this color here. All right. So as I said, so those are your choices there for your, as I said, for your bamboo colors done in the air drying clay. But this needs to dry. And as I said, then once that's dry, we'll be actually in the next part we'll be doing on the next episode, we'll be actually finishing this off. So this is going to have obviously several days for it to dry. But as I said, you need to leave this for, as I said, at least about 12 hours ideally for it to sort of dry. This one is totally dry. okay? And it will shrink a little bit, but as I said, just usually about 8 to 10%, and this will give you your bamboo effect. Now, of course, bamboo comes in obviously different colors, but also different sizes. You know, this is actually some real bamboo, all right? So this came from Japan, and this is actually a flower vase. So this has got where the ribbon part is there. So in Japan and China, you often see bamboo cut, and then the bamboo is obviously made into a vase. So this part here, as you can see, is sealed because that's where the ribbon is, and they cut down into different sizes, and you could use this for a tall arrangement with orchids in. So of course you could also do this type of effect where you're just using that, but I felt that doing it in this technique, it's just going to look a little bit more natural looking. It's a little bit more interesting. But as you can see, this is obviously like the dried bamboo, and just gives you a size, obviously, of the different size bamboo, you know. So of course, this is like small bamboo, and this is obviously giant bamboo. So you have many, obviously, scopes with that. So that is the container, the first part of that container. And as I said, so in the next episode, when we come to finish this off, we're going to be painting it. I'm also going to show you the dusting of that one. Next, I'm going to show you how to do a sugar version. So I'm going to talk about doing this in sugar. So if you were doing this for a wedding cake, of course, you could totally make an air drying clay, or you could make a sugar vase in this container in the same way. So as I said, I'm going to show you next how to make the sugar one. Also talk about alternatives instead of using a tin can. So in your directions, it talks about doing this in sugar, meaning in sugar paste or rolled fondant. So first of all, you're going to use an empty painted can. So that would be, and then again, just exactly the same technique, either painted as sort of a camel color, beige color, or a green, okay, with the acrylic paint. And then the other alternative, it says in your directions, or use a styrene cake dummy. So this is just a sort of a smaller one, but you can of course order cake dummies. You could order this in the size, and this is 3 inches, which is about 7.5 centimeters. And this is obviously, as I said, would be about the same height. All right, but you of course could order a 10 centimeter high. And then obviously a 7.5 centimeter wide. So that's one option. Then you can also buy, like these are actually from the dollar store or pound store, the little small round discs. And as you can see that these are, these are the right size. So these are about 3 inches, about 7.5 centimeters in size. And these ones are actually here, as you can see, 2.5 or 1 inch deep. So if you take 4 of those, all right, so if you take actually 4 of those, and you just stack them together, you can just use a little bit of, as I said, school glue, or you can use some, obviously, hot glue gun. And then just like I showed you on the episode where we made the basket topper, I've just hot glued or glued a cardboard where I made a hole with a hole punch through it. So that would go, and that would be stuck on there. And then you push a bamboo skewer through, and then you'd use, like, for example, like a little cake dummy or a piece of styrofoam. So you see I've got about 5 centimeters or about 2 inches of the bamboo skewer here. You put this through like that, and then you can just, you could use this, and you can keep the skewer in here until you're ready to obviously put the flowers in, but you basically would cut this off. So just like I did on the basket topper. Now here, what you would then do is in your instructions for the paste, all right, it tells you you're going to need 280 grams of sugar paste or rolled fondant, colored cream for dry bamboo, or lime green for green bamboo, or use pre-colored paste. Now, when I made my sample one here, what I did is for the 280 grams, I actually used a 250 gram pack of Renshaw bright green, and then I used just 30 grams of white fondant, all right? Because obviously it's convenient to buy the 250 gram packs. So I just took that, an additional 30 grams. So I mixed this together, it gives you 280 grams. And then that would give you, that would be what you would do. And then you would obviously in your directions then, you take the 280 grams of the sugar paste or rolled fondant, add in a heaped teaspoon, you know, so you're gonna basically do a heaped teaspoon of Tylose, and half a heaped teaspoon of Tylose and half a teaspoon of vegetable fat. So because normally when we modify, you know, we do 115 grams is a quarter of a teaspoon. So 230 grams would be half a teaspoon. We have 280 grams, all right, which is obviously extra. So just do a heaped half teaspoon of Tylose. And this is all in your directions. And what that's going to do is going to firm up the paste a little bit. And you don't have to wait for this to sit. You can just mix the Tylose into this and use it straight away. Now, if you're going to be doing with a dummy cake, as it tells you, note, if doing as a dummy, you'll scale 330 grams, so basically 50 grams more, and you'll use 50 grams of that to cover the side very thinly like a panel method cake. So what you would do is you take 230 grams, all right, you can still use the same amount of Tylos, just a heaped half teaspoon, and take 50 grams of it, roll it into, like we did on the basket, roll it into a rectangle, and then what you would then do is you can roll it up and roll it around. So you're going to do like the panel method. So it would be a little bit like, you know, when we cover cakes, we do the top and the side separately. So you would just do a thin coating of paste around the side of here. All right, this is just for the dummy method or the styrene shapes. And then you would then let it dry a little bit. Then you would then continue with the remaining 230 grams, just exactly the same way as we did the air drying clay one. Roll it into a sausage, cut it into 8, and then you're going to go around. And you can see here, and of course this is going to be quite a lot heavier. All right, so here I've got the 16 of these around. So just to show you, and then I'm going to finish this off in a second by adding then the additional small one or medium one, depending on the size of the gap, with the additional paste. All right. So of course you could do this in obviously sugar in the 3 different colors, in the cream, in the creamy green color, or in the green, really depending on what color you want this to be. But this is a really nice, as I said, technique to use for obviously for a topper of a cake, because it's self-contained. So just like some of the other things we've done, it means this could you could have your arrangement of orchids or your flowers in here once this is all finished. This could sit on top of the cake. Now, if you're going to put this on top of the cake, I would put a little small cardboard, or for example, a little piece of fondant on the bottom of this. But obviously for air drying clay, it doesn't have to have that on it. But obviously for a sugar one, because you don't really want to put the tin straight on top of the cake. But this is going to have a lot of weight on it. And as I said, that would be used. And then when you're doing this one here, you know, once that's all finished, you've got your flowers in, you'd obviously take that, you pull this off, and then of course that just pushes in the top of the cake because it's going to be a lot lighter. And then the bamboo skewer will hold it on the top of the cake. And then of course, when it's taken off of the cake, you could just cut off the bamboo skewer, and then the client could keep this as a self-contained arrangement. Now, so there are, you know, we've obviously had a couple of episodes talking about toppers, and then of course you could also do this in rattan as well. So this is Kerry Griffiths continuous rattan mat, all right? So, and that's what I use for the cake board of the cake I showed you at the beginning, and this works really well. But also you could also do, like for example, rattan around there as well. So then that would make a nice design. So it would look like a rattan whole planter, and then you'd have obviously your orchids or other tropical flowers. Because bamboo works really well with obviously Asian theme, but also with African theme as well, or international theme. So you often see bamboo used with example like leopard and zebra print. So, you know, if you're doing a cake for somebody with like that leopard zebra type of print on it, the bamboo works really, really well as a border. And so those are obviously, as I said, the options for the container. So the choice is up to you, whether you want to do this in sugar paste or rolled fondant, or whether you want to do this in air drying clay. You're just going to make the base in the color you want, and then obviously next time we'll be coming back, and then we will be obviously painting and finishing these off. This one will be painted, this one will be dusted, and then we'll be steaming and glazing. This one will be hairspray, and then putting some glaze on it because it's air drying clay. And you have a fantastic container, very inexpensive to make. And as I said, this could also be used for some things around the home. You can use this to put pens in it. You could use this as, for example, in your kitchen when you're having Asian food, you could put your chopsticks in there. So there's lots of different fun things you could use this type of container for. Other things you can also use would be other containers. This is, for example, like a Renshaw royal icing container. So things you have, you know, takeout food in, or like foods you're gonna a lot of time just keep these for takeout and things in, but leftovers. Could cut the top off of that, so you could use something like this. This is actually from, I got this from a craft store from Michael's, and this is actually for putting pencils in. But again, you see this is already green, so I literally could just attach my sugar or my air drying clay to this, and then use this as a topper. It's a little bit wider and slightly shallower, but as I said, this type of thing works really well to make nice decorative toppers for cakes. So now we're going to move on to talk about the bamboo that is going to go into the container. Now, when we are doing this, following your work order, first thing is going to be to make the bamboo leaves, and then we'll move on to the first half of the bamboo. And then once the leaves are dry, we'll move on to the second part of the bamboo. Now, what you're going to now do is you need to watch the video. Now, there are two videos for the bamboo. There is one on creating lifelike bamboo, which is the one you want to watch. And this will show how to make the leaves, how to make the bamboo, the main part of the bamboo. The second video shows more using bamboo on cookies and cakes. So it shows the two cakes I started off with obviously how to do the edge of the board, how to use obviously the paste on the cake. Now also remember, when you're watching that video, you will see me talk about this. When I'm doing like the bamboo, like we've just done on the container, we modified the fondant so that of course it will become a little bit harder. If you're doing this on a real cake, you just use unmodified fondant or sugar paste, all right? But as I said, so that second video shows how to use the bamboo for obviously for cookies. I talk about also on that one like how to do things like a purse handle. So if you're making like a suitcase or a lady's bag or purse, you can obviously, that's very nice to do bamboo handles. So I talk about that. I also on that video talk about doing like curly bamboo. This doesn't have its leaves on or coloring, but how to create that effect, which is the same as the handle. So as I said, so you need to look at the realistic bamboo. And now I'm just going to talk a little bit about your instructions, because that tells you obviously how many and everything you're going to make. So this is what we're actually going to need for our obviously container. You're going to be doing a piece of medium bamboo, you're going to be doing a piece of large bamboo, and then obviously the large one is going to have more leaves and obviously 3 total sort of offshoots, and then the medium one will have 2 offshoots. So you have an image of this in your download, so obviously that will give you an idea of what you're making. So we need to start off first of all by making the bamboo leaves, all right? So when you watch the video, but these are made in the wedding foliage mold. So see on the wedding foliage mold, and you're just going to follow the directions for basically you make for Italian ruscus, because we're going to use the same mold as we use for Italian ruscus. So you have your directions in your, by starting off by the bamboo leaves, you'll need to make these because they need to be dried. Because when we make bamboo, we need to have the leaves dry, and then you'll have the little like sub branch, the little shoot that comes off the side added to those. And then you will then move on to the main part of the bamboo. So we're doing this a little different than we would sometimes do things. So remember, when we do the with your Italian ruscus, you can either use the fan vena or you can use the back of the lily vena. If you don't have either of these, remember this comes with the sunflower and daisy mold, all right? We also sell this separately, and this one of course comes with the lily. But if you don't have those, don't worry. You can just use just one side of the veining. But anyway, so you're going to, this will give you obviously your leaves. And then you would modify your sugar paste rolled fondant, all right? And for the realistic bamboo, we're doing that in a sort of almost like a khaki color. So what I've done there is you're going to remember when we did the actual container, I did it more in a creamy color, but this is just cream with a little bit of green. So if you're doing this in sugar, you would just use like a cream. This is a gold color or like a cream color, a little bit of avocado, a little tiny bit of moss green, all right? And if you're doing this in air drying clay, just use exactly the same as we use for the container, which is going to give you an ivory color, and then just add a little tiny bit of green to it, all right? And that will give you the same sort of color, but you won't need as much of that. All of your amounts are in your download, okay? But what you do is you make the leaves, then you're going to take that paste, you're going to make the little obviously side pass, and then when we make the bamboo, what we actually do there is we use the mold. This is actually a small one here. You use the mold like this, and then you're going to put an 18 gauge wire into it, which you'll see. And then for a sugar one, you let this dry, all right? So you let this dry, and then just like pine cones, once this is dry, you repeat the process, so then you'll fill up the mold again, some piping gel onto there. And also, incidentally, I meant to have mentioned, when you're doing, when in your directions, when you do the sugar container, you attach the bamboo onto that with piping gel. So just liberally pipe and spread some with a paintbrush and piping gel like we did for the glue, okay? And then what you do is you're then going to take the second half, so that would give you like this effect here, where you have your bamboo. And then what you do is you take your little groups of leaves, and you bend those, and then you're actually going to insert those in with some softened paste, and then you're also going to fill in any little gaps like we do with some of the other Flower Pro. But you're just going to watch this all on the video, okay? And so you're going to complete the bamboo. And so in your downloadable materials, it tells you we're going to be making 3 small, 7 medium, and 6 large leaves. And then it tells you we've got the configurations that are going to be achieved. So when we do the configurations, you're going to do, these will be your 2 configurations. So you're going to have a large leaf, a medium leaf, and a small leaf, a medium and a small. And then you have, again, over here, it goes through the large, the medium, and small, 2 large, 2 medium, 1 small, 2 large, 1 medium. So those are your configurations. But remember, you have this image in your download, so you're just going to look at that for guidance. So you're going to complete the bamboo in this. Obviously, this will be part of the first, as I said, part of the bamboo. And so what you will have is you'll have a medium and a large at this stage here, ready for the next lesson, which is going to be unpainted or undusted. All right, and then you'll have obviously your container, as I said, either in air drying clay, in cream or in green, and or in sugar, in cream or green, depending on what color you want to go with. All right, and I will be posting these. Obviously, we'll be doing the next lesson, so I will be posting these after the next. Obviously, these are finished, so you can see the difference between the 2 colors. All right, but as you can see you've got your. This will be the color I'm going to paint this. So we're going to paint this a nice sort of like a dry bamboo look. But as I said, the natural bamboo, which is what we're going to be doing here, as you can see, that's going to be a little bit more greeny. And then, of course, you have obviously the green bamboo, which would be like this one here, which would be just a little brighter. Okay, so those are your sort of 3 choices there for both your container in air drying clay or in sugar. Okay, and so that will be our obviously bamboo ready for the next section. So remember, check out the videos, and remember the one we're working from is the realistic bamboo, but also watch the video on using the bamboo on cakes and cookies and how I do the 3-dimensional bamboo. Now also remember, those of you who are working with air drying clay, when you make you're going to follow the directions the same, but in your text it will tell you when you make the one half of the bamboo, what you would do with air drying clay, you would make the other half straight away. And I also do show that on the video, making one half and the other half, because when you make this as a purse handle, all right, or you make this as lucky bamboo, you have to bend it to shape while the 2 halves are soft. But also even making realistic bamboo with air drying clay, you need to make one half, make the second half, then you would stick the leaves into the side. I also do talk about in the video as well, you can also make a simpler bamboo rather than making this little side branch of the bamboo, this little sprout. You can also just attach the leaves and you just push the leaves into the bamboo. This looks more realistic in a container, but also for a client you have to think about, you know, budget and time and things as well. So those will be ready for obviously the next lesson, when we're going to be finishing off the container and finishing off the bamboo. So I hope you've enjoyed this first lesson on the bamboo. We'll have fun creating your container and then doing the first stage of the bamboo, ready for the next lesson when we're going to color them and have them ready for our container in a couple of episodes time. If you have any questions along the way, don't hesitate to obviously post. Until next time, sweet wishes. See you soon. Bye.